I never listened for that inner voice
Yeah.
because I was too busy being around
Right.
people and doing things and being
Right.
productive and working. And
Hello, my name's Naranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast, learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett.
Today is episode number 158, and I had the pleasure of talking to Kara, who is a social impact entrepreneur and a non-for-profit founder, and a mother of two dedicated to building compassion and a connected world. Through initiatives like Backpack Dreams, Threads Worldwide, and Soul Journey, she empowers women, fosters community, and inspires the collective transformation. Enjoy this interesting conversation and thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to Kara. How are you, Kara?
hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for us to jump into this conversation because when I came across your profile and had this conversation, a pre-podcast conversation, which is what I often do with individuals, we got into some pretty juicy stuff, and I'm very excited for us as a collective to learn more about you and your drive, your mission, your purpose, your alignment in partnership, but also being in a place of giving back to the world and putting it in a beautiful package that is easy, receptive, and delicious for people to engage, but also for you to act, support, and be a steward of that.
Well, thank you for reflecting those things. I'm very excited to share about all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious and I'm excited to hear your stories and your journey to where you've got to today. But I'm going to save that other big question for what's going to come down the pipes, which I kind of sense feel. And we talked a little bit earlier about what is coming down the pipelines, which is even more delicious, for a little bit later. But the setup is there. It's coming. It's coming.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to start with a really big bold question is what is it you believe about yourself? And does it define who Kara is at this moment of time in your juncture of life?
What I believe about myself is that I have the conversations about unique talents and gifts and purpose. And the more I've had the privilege to heal, I understand that my gift has always been to have ideas, have a vision, and I used to say bring, but now it feels like call in the people who are meant to participate in that vision. And I've had big visions my whole life, and we can get into how that's played out, that I wasn't exactly ready to steward because I really had to do the work on myself
Right.
that needed to be done to be able to really be in this conversation in a powerful way. I just unplugged my lights, so I'm sorry about that. 1 second. There we go. And the light's back on. Um, so doing that work, I believe that I'm here to share ideas and visions around a new paradigm for all of us to that we can. Let me go back. I've been utilizing it in my own life, and it's created transformation in ways that I didn't see coming as quickly as they did, and in my family and people around me and businesses that I'm running. So I believe there can be world peace. And what I'm recognizing so clearly now is what all the spiritual teachers have been telling me, but now I get it on a new level. Oh my goodness, is find peace in myself and keep living that. And what is meant to ripple will ripple.
Beautiful. It's quite the journey of going inwards and recognizing what is it we need to learn from this experience that can then be transformed to be of service or greater service to the world and those who are ready to receive it. Teetering onto your point of not everybody's willing to receive and accept.
Yes, agreed. And my lens is that the vast majority of humanity is living in survival mode. And we may think about survival mode as people that don't have money and can't buy food and can't have access to water. And my understanding is very different than that. It includes people like that, of course. And it also includes so many of us and where I've been the majority of my life, where I was in survival mode, but I didn't realize it. And because I have privilege, I'm working on being very intentional with my words.
Yes,
And I'm usually like this, and this is my work to do in this moment. So what I've realized as I have had the financial privilege to really invest in healing work and spiritual work, uh, is that, since I was born, I have been creating survival strategies to stay safe in the world.
Mhm.
And the work that I'm so passionate about bringing forth is what I understand for myself is that I believe I was born as this beautiful, divine soul. And I was born into a system that was very misaligned with my beautiful soul values. And so from a young age, I've had to create survival strategies to make myself feel safe. And has been unconscious to subconscious, which now gets to be conscious. So I actually get to play with it. So that's my belief on people being willing or unwilling. And so now I feel like my responsibility in a very positive, energetic way is to be able to share what I've come to understand in a way that may impact people around me, around the world. And again, as long as I continue to be spiritually fit, that will be made possible in the way that it's meant to, is my belief.
Beautiful. How did you determine that this is part of a calling for you?
Well, is this podcast 3 months long or 1 hour? 1 hour. Quick question.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a quick question. How did you
Quick
determine
question.
that?
Well, it's fascinating. I'm just living in a space of understanding or consciousness or whatever words we want to put around it, where I can look back on my life and connect the dots of things that have happened throughout my life from when I was a little girl.
Mhm.
And what I recognized was I've always had certain things about me that have been essentially telling me about my calling and my
Mhm.
purpose.
Mhm.
And now that I am trusting myself with this calling and purpose, I can look back and say, oh my goodness, have I been getting these messages my whole life? So I can trace things back to when I was a little girl and my parents and said, we got to stop reading or watching the news
Mhm.
because I would see suffering and it would impact me dramatically
Yeah.
to the point where it would take me out.
Mm.
I also can trace back from the time I was a little girl how obsessed I was with fairness and justice.
Mhm.
And it's funny how it played out at the time because it didn't feel at didn't look as spiritually aligned as it may now.
Right.
But there was this obsession with fairness, justice, and in inability to handle suffering in a way that was, safe for my body at the time and
Right.
my psyche. Up until, throughout my life, starting to tap into purpose driven or initiatives, opportunities that are in true alignment with what I know to be my purpose right now, which is create, bringing peace and bringing opportunity to people who may not otherwise have it. I would get into those situations, and now I understand. Looking back, I would feel lit up. One of my signs for myself around being connected with my purpose or being in a conversation where truth is present for me is I'll get the chills.
Right.
And now that I understand these things, they get to be my North Stars around, okay, is this in alignment or is it not?
Yeah.
And I could take a lot of time and give you all of the examples. And I'm wondering if that
Yeah.
gives you clarity around that question for now.
Absolutely. It gives context to
Okay.
listeners and it gives them insight for me. So then I can ask you this other bold question.
Certainly.
In what do you feel are some of the key attributes that connect you to this calling and purpose and this drive and this greater understanding and clarity that you've gained over the years as you further stepped into you? What are those tools, mechanisms, and gifts and talents, if you will, that you've put into play that align you in such a beautifully easy way?
Well, it's interesting because my path, and this is what I'm recognizing of everyone, there are a million different paths to get to our profound truth.
Mhm.
And mine was not what I read about in books as
Mhm.
much. And it's been, living my life. I feel like an important piece of it in looking back was on the outside, I had a beautiful childhood. I had a family that loved me. All of these things are true. Uh, Amazing friends, good athlete, good student. Like on the surface, I was that girl that was doing it right. And I say right in quotes.
Yes.
And as I look back, I've always had this feeling of emptiness or there's something wrong here that I can't understand, or just this feeling like there's something more, there's something wrong that I can't understand. However, my survival strategies that I created from a young age were really looked well upon from society, which was I'm just going to surround myself with people all of the time. Like, really, my drive was I am afraid to be alone.
Mhm.
Again, unconscious at this point.
Mhm.
I'm afraid to be alone. So I was driven to surround myself with people to feel safe. Now,
Right.
what does that look like on the outside? It looks like, wow, Kara's really popular.
Yeah.
and I was driven to achieve and do well. And so I did very well in the different things I was called to do, play sports, my grades, and all driven by this need to feel safe. And I want to be careful about that because I do believe there's been this mixture my whole life of my calling and my unique gifts and talents. And what I'm realizing in just the newest phase of my life is I created survival strategies that were in alignment with my unique gifts and talents, which were okay, my gift and talent is to have ideas and get people excited and having an energy of people wanting to be around me.
Yeah.
So that then throughout my life, as I believe my calling and my purpose was like, hold on, sister, you're doing things on the right path. However, it's being motivated or driven by an untruth, which is that I am unsafe and I need this to feel safe. So through my journey, which looked like very uh, unexpected spiritual experiences that felt like they came out of nowhere. I was on the lake in Guatemala at one time, and because I was scared to be alone, I never spent time alone.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering again, was it that I felt like I had this calling, or maybe I knew these things, but I was so scared to step into it because it felt too big, or it felt like, who do I think I am, or whatever it was. So who knows? But I never listened for that inner voice because I was too busy being around people and doing things and being productive and working. And so I had this moment when I was in Guatemala for some of the work for the company, that one of the companies I started, and I meditated, and out of nowhere, I had this. My grandfather's voice came to me. My grandfather, who passed away when I was in college, who was my gosh, how do I even say it? He showed me what it feels like to be unconditionally loved. And his voice came to me in that moment saying, at the time I was really worried about my older daughter. And he said, I'm here. I'm so glad you found me. I've always been here. And you have nothing to worry about with your beautiful daughters. All you have to do is love them with your whole heart. And in that moment, as I came out of this meditation, sobbing and shaking, and knowing in that moment that I just reconnected with my soul that I used to say abandoned. And now that word doesn't feel right to me, that I stopped listening to at a very young age.
Right.
And I knew in that moment, and that really spurred me going deep on a spiritual path. And that looked all over the place. Going to shamans, reading all the spiritual books, finding the thought leaders that resonated, starting to get more interested in religion, and, do any fit exactly for what I'm feeling in my moment. A lot of therapy. I ended up knowing that I couldn't do what I was meant to do within my current family constellation. So it led to a divorce. It led to me falling in love with a woman, which was interesting to navigate with my very conservative, sweet family and community. Anyway, it led me through all of these different things and a lot of seeking for myself. I was seeking. I want more of this. Like, I know there's something out there, and I'm starting to understand. And my journey was such that I was starting to get all of these downloads, but I didn't have the tools or resources yet to understand how to ground what was coming through, which created a lot of chaos in my life It led to, like I said, I believe that my survival strategies kicked in as a young girl. However, those coping mechanisms that were revered in society started shifting to ones that were less revered. You know, drinking and being the party girl, super cool until you lose
Until
your
that.
control of being it. And that's what happened with me. That as all of my addictions were progressing, drinking progressed to the point where it didn't look as cool in
Right.
society. And so that's what ultimately brought me to my knees to be able to really surrender to, okay, I've been doing really amazing things, and it has been driven by this need to feel safe. And now I'm doing the dance of like, whoa, I really know my purpose. However, I still have these strategies in place. And my drinking progressed to addiction to bring me to my knees to completely surrender to my recovery,
Mhm.
which is what has allowed me to really get deep with all of these survival strategies that have been in place that I've been able to release, knowing that I don't need them anymore. And that's what's opened the floodgates of um, the guidance I need moment to moment to really maximize, really utilize my gifts in the way I'm meant to be a contribution in the world in this moment in time.
Right. So in that space, it takes a lot of courage. I mean, going back to the timeline of when you was in Guatemala, you could feel this other energy coming through when it felt so big, and the capacity to hold it and embody, let alone embody it and embrace it, seems so big that it overwhelmed you and really recoiled you back into your own state. What's been your path and journey? Perhaps it's small bites along the way as you unravel and uncover other versions and other parts of you that needed to be let go to create space for new. But were there some
Mhm.
key elements in that journey for you to truly step into? I know this is to go, but I know it's a process for it to go. So I can bring this in that's sitting there on the shelf and it's waiting for its welcome. What was that process like for you? Because I imagine there are many people around the world um, who were in a similar place of, I know there's more, but I've got to peel back this really painful onion.
Mhm.
And I know that needs to happen, but this is kind of comfortable. So these messages keep getting louder that I'm juggling potentially. And what does that look like to be able to navigate that? And I don't even know if we can even do it in a really smooth way, but in the best way that we can.
Mhm.
What was that for
Well,
you?
thank you for asking the question that I'm obsessed with talking about in this moment in time. And really the what I consider to be the dance
Yes.
for me.
Yeah.
I had these big ideas, downloads, knowings come through. And like I said, I didn't realize at the time, but my system and the system
Mm-hmm.
that we are all living within,
Mm-hmm.
we're not ready to hear the big ideas
Sure.
in that moment.
Right.
And that's been the dance for me is I've seen the light and I'm gonna share it with everyone. Well, what does that look like? It looks like I need to be put on medication and perhaps go away somewhere for a while because it feels um, what we've been taught is crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Insane, manic, uh, sick, ill. And so the journey has been, I feel like, equally extraordinary with really, really hard. And so And I believe I needed that desperately to understand the energies at play. And my fundamental belief system in this moment in time is we're all trying so desperately to change the world within a system that won't allow for it. And we have been taught that people who come through with ideas that are so out of the box and or feel like, well, that can never happen, so this person must be insane. We've been taught that, and that's what I'm getting so deeply in my being is I believe that the more we can be in conversation and lift the veil of what is true, and my truth is that, like I said, we're born beautiful souls into a system that literally teaches us that we must conform
Yes.
to the implicit and explicit rules of society
Right.
to be safe, when I believe the truth is the opposite. And since we're currently living in that system, there's a dance. And what I get to do now, because, and let me tell you what that's looked like. Before I've gotten to this place of being able to ground the energy and course correct when I'm fire hosing someone instead of meeting them where they are, is coming home and scaring my husband at the time so much because I came back a different person and I didn't have the language or the communication in that moment to really, or the consciousness to understand really what was happening. So it really scared him. It led to a divorce that, looking back, I feel like I if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have handled it very differently. And that is not to say I wouldn't have ended up getting divorced. I you know, with my drinking continued to progress, which caused had an impact on the people around me. It scared the people around me. It scared my kids. It scared my now what I mean, it scared all of my intimate people. And I believe that had I had known now, gosh, every time, had I known then what I know now, my drinking wouldn't have accelerated because I would have been able to be in relationship in a way that I felt safe and they felt safe. I so all of those things, and again, looking at the survival strategies, because I didn't have what I have in place now, which are the tools and my ways of being,
Mhm.
I had to drink
Mhm.
because that was the only way with my lens at the time to be able to handle the amount of energy that I had and the knowings that I had
Yeah.
when I knew I there was not the place for them to come alive in that moment in time.
Mhm.
So there were I can give a lot of examples of the
Mhm.
other like chaotic moments.
Mhm.
And what I know to be true now is I'm so grateful for each and every one. And I've been able to have conversations with my children around exactly how I see the drinking, which has transformed. And to be fair, I've always had a really good relationship with my kids, and it's transformed the our relationship in extra layers and layers and layers of, deep, deep trust, not just trust,
Yeah.
deep trust,
Yeah.
which now my girls who are teenagers, which everyone said, watch out, good luck. I'm obsessed with being their mom.
Mhm.
And they're sharing things with me like
Mhm.
like deep things that I couldn't imagine ever sharing with my mom.
Mhm.
And same with my wife and same with the people around me. I've been able to go back and own and be responsible for my part in different situations, which, since everything I believe is a two-way street, and there's not an identified patient in situations, it's always a dance in a relationship in an ecosystem. It's created opportunity for the people that I love dearly to sit and really recognize their part. And so through that, again, these layers of depth in relationship, and the more I surrender to, again, what I know to be true, I'm developing, taking steps and earning more and more trust in myself of, okay, I did what I knew to do, not impulsively in the moment. I actually grounded myself, and I can share different ways that shows up. And then I had the conversation and look at what happened. And again, not always this beautiful, like I had this conversation and now it's a kumbaya and we're best friends in that moment. I had the conversation. I knew that was what I needed to do for my own freedom while recognizing the space that they may be in. And surrendering to what that's going to look like in the moment. And now it's created this opportunity where I get to do the work that I'm doing, and people are being called in. There's like no force or effort around, do my program, come join my company. It's just they're literally being called in. And that's the story, part of the story I wanted to share in that moment.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It takes so much more courage to have those big, I call very courageous conversations, not only with the people around you in your sphere, but most importantly with yourself. And I think the world around us has been created with so many distractions. And we can call social media a massive distraction. We can call the fact that we carry a computer with us pretty much 24/7 at our disposal, that we have access to so much and so readily that the information is literally at our fingertips, can be a detriment for us to tune in. So leaning into or sifting out pieces of your evolution and your growth in perhaps these are markers for us to identify where we are at as individuals on our growth and our journey, be it in and out of relationships, be it obsessive eating, drinking, some form of an addiction that's going to suppress the other language or dialogue or sense of knowing that's creeping into our awareness because we're not conditioned to listen to that small whisper, to listen to that higher version of ourselves that's trying to get our attention. However, I believe that there are many out there who are in that space because they've been nurtured into an environment that identifies safety and not to be ostracized and not to be weird or not to be abandoned in any way because you have a different experience than the parents, the siblings, or you are, for the lack of better terms, the chosen one to have those experiences in that family unit. And this is your work, and this is your purpose, and this is what you are here to do. So get out of the comfort zone and do it. So we've seen all those other markers, like I said, addiction, being ostracized, which really reflects on the whole self-worth and self-being of who we are, until we can get into adulthood and recognize and make those really big decisions of getting a divorce and being okay with being ostracized or being let down, if you will, by these people called family that we are born into, to be able to take that other courageous path and say, no, 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 no. There's more for us to do.
Yes. And I love these conversations because anytime I get to be in these conversations, I get another layer of understanding. So you may have seen me take my notebook and just
I
write a
did.
couple things
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Good.
Uh,
I'm glad.
I love it so much.
I'm
And something
glad.
that feels important for me to say in this moment that I never understood is the relationship with shame around behaviors, things that I'm doing. I lived my whole life hating my body,
Mhm.
having such an unhealthy
Mhm.
relationship with food because it was all about the scarcity and how do I limit myself to look a certain way. Had so much shame around drinking. I've had shame about phone use. I've had shame about overworking. I mean, overworking and not being with my kids, and then shame around being with my kids and not working. There's always been this shame and guilt component, which again, through my lens of recognizing, wait a minute, this shame is coming from something outside of me. This shame is coming from what I've been taught about how to be a great mom, how, like, to be a good person, you need to be a great mom. And what does a great mom mean? It means spending so much time with your kids and meeting their every need. Okay. I also need to be a great business leader because I need to make a lot of money because making a lot of money means I'm a successful business leader. Okay. And then I also need to be a spiritual bunny. Well, to be a spiritual bunny, I need to meditate 2 hours a day. And to be fit, I need to go to the gym. Like,
All these. Yeah.
what we're being taught, in my opinion, cannot coexist.
Right.
And so, again, being able to lift the veil of what does it mean for me, Kara, to be my best version of myself,
Mhm.
which is all of those things.
Mhm.
However, it's in the way that I'm meant to do it.
Right.
And so, boy, did I spend, how old am I? I'm going to be 47, like my first 45 years feeling wrong or like I'm not enough. And so
Mhm.
now it's even interesting in the phone conversation because I realize for myself, AI and technology is such a humongous asset for being able to spread messages.
Absolutely.
And many of them are to, in my opinion, our world's detriment. However, we get to spread messages of light and love and peace as well. And I also, to give you an example, something that has become part of my self-care is being able to lie down and play Blockbuster. Blockbuster is like a Tetris type phone game. And I would feel guilty, like, oh, I should be meditating. Oh, I should be. And I'm like, you know what? This is my opportunity to sit and figure out where these blocks belong, to step away for a minute from the energy of what's coming through. And I'm realizing that's as important part of my self-care as meditating is. And so that's the dance that I have right now of what is of service to my soul and what is not. And the what I would say, my practice and what I would love to share with everyone, and no matter where we are on our consciousness path, for me, the only thing is to get curious around when I'm doing what I'm doing, how does it feel in my body? And I mean, just a couple years ago, I was a walking head. I couldn't feel sensations in my body really. And now through this curiosity and saying yes to what feels good and saying no and get flexing that muscle. And it wasn't, this has been a lifelong journey of understanding these things. So the shame thing feels so huge for me. And I feel like curiosity is the pathway to understanding what is true for me versus what are the um, untrue and dangerous
Right.
messages that I've been taught throughout my life.
Yeah. And there's lots there. There's lots there to unpack, Kara, from is it shame or is it just or is it identity? and the labels we put on things. So your version of meditation in your mind has been defined as maybe being, lotus position, still out in the middle of nature, doing nothing, but just in that very Zen state. Whereas what we know is true is you could be cooking a meal in a meditative state. You could be playing that Tetris game in a meditative state. It's whatever mechanism and tool is needed to allow that thinking brain to quiet and simmer and allow the unconscious and the subconscious to do some work in the background while we go a little offline too by doing those autopilot tasks.
Brilliance. Brilliantly said. And the curiosity for me comes in of what have we been taught by society is not a good thing to be doing versus like what is for us. And
That's right.
that I believe allows for the awareness to come through. So instead of saying, oh, phone use is bad, playing games is bad, eating a certain amount is bad, all of these things, drinking is bad, all of these different things, to just get curious around, but is it?
Yes, exactly. It is. And it's
I love it.
the identity that
Yes.
we put on it based on what's right and what's wrong. Because ultimately we want to fit in, right?
Yep.
As human beings, there's a huge desire and a need to be able to want to fit in and be part of a community. And if we don't do that, if you don't wear those beautiful glasses you're wearing and they're not on trend, then you're not fitting in. Like, what's happening, Kara? Like, come on, get your life together. You don't fit in anymore. Like, it's from that vantage point, but we're the ones to surrender to it. Whereas it's just peeling back more and more layers of that onion. And that happens one layer at a time when we are ready to let it go and when we can create space for the exposure of what's really needed on this planet.
Exactly. And since I've been on this journey, and productivity is such a robotic response.
Yes.
And I always thought, to do what I want to do in the world, I need to push harder. When in reality, through my surrender, which looked like leaving my companies to go into recovery, in that space, that sure doesn't seem to make sense around, am I going to realize my vision? I was running a global enterprise empowering women. However, through doing that, I get to sit where I am, and the ripple effect, because what I realize is I'm here to create safe spaces. I call them elevation ecosystems in the world. And I was trying to do it without having a safe place here in my elevation ecosystem. And now that that's in alignment, I'm realizing my vision in hyper speed by continuing to surrender and listen. I keep saying I have found the best life hack, because I feel like I get to be in my life, not efforting. And just when I feel myself effort, I get to say, seems like I'm on the wrong path. Okay, let me sit back.
Sure.
And now everything continues to come into view.
Yeah. I think on this path also, with even many people that I've had conversations with, and what I'm hearing pretty loud from yours is, it's doing the dance of doing and being, accepting and receiving, letting go and welcoming. So it's doing this conscious but unconscious dance of that, of how do we live a life like that rather than live the life of the indoctored rules and structure that we've had since birth, which played its part. That was part of the process. You chose it, I chose it, 8 billion people around the world chose it. So how can we take advantage of that and learn from it to really recognize what is it we are really here to do and what does that look like. And I've often had this thought because this has been somewhat of a theme of an outcome, not only for myself, but many people on this path of I want to create more and there's a bigger purpose that I'm here to do is what if when we all got these messages of I'm here to do something greater, and this greater insight message awareness of what I'm here to do is so big, and I don't think the world's ready for it because I'm ahead of my game. What if we all would have created it then? And dropped
Funny that, oh, sorry, go
the
ahead.
analogy of we're ahead of the game. People are
Mhm.
not ready to receive it because perhaps everybody's sitting in their parts of their world in that life are all thinking the same of there's nobody who's going to understand me out there. They're not going to receive it. There's no calling and no need for that. But yet we're all sitting here intuitively craving it and connecting it with each other around the world. And I've pondered that for a number of times, but I guess get to say it out loud with you. So thank you. Of I think now there's perhaps more courage because universally and solically we're all really being pushed to the end to say no more people are not ready. No more we're ahead of the game. No more of that. It's now or we're going to take a very different path. But from a soul journey, this is it. There is no other.
I have
And I
chills
see,
all over my body. I'm not
yeah,
surprised.
yeah,
And what I see happening is exactly that. And it's hilarious that you started with what if, because my whole team has notes of different things that come out that are
yeah,
going to be on like swag. And one of them for me was what the F, because when I
yes.
get excited, that F bomb comes through.
Uh,
WTF if.
yeah,
And I believe we're in this space where all many of us who are being called into this conversation of doing it a new way are finding each other. And
yeah.
I feel like you, and that's my calling is
Mhm,
to create an idea, create, test, and evolve an ideology in communion with all of these other people that are called to it. And I call it elevationism.
mhm.
And just start practicing that and testing it and
Yeah,
doing it in our ecosystem. And my belief, and we'll see because we have a whole experiment around it, is that the more we're doing this and the more we're together transcending these
mhm,
belief systems,
mhm.
the more it's going to happen like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So thank you for coming into my orbit and finding me. And
You're welcome.
I wager to say that's all part of the divine orchestration. And I'm going to
Absolutely.
say thank you to you and
Yeah,
to
the bigger
our
one.
divine universal
Yeah,
force that we're all a part of.
absolutely. Exactly. And even as I say this out loud to you, there are other aspects of myself and greater messages and insights from my end coming in to collate people like you and everybody else on the planet who was in this space going, ahead of my game, I'm going to just sit and wait. And I'm going to pull them out and say, come and land with me and let's see what we can create. Because what we know for sure is when we link arms together, metaphorically and physically, greater things can happen. And I think the world, majority of the people in this space of suffering, not financially, but emotionally and spiritually, are calling for this louder and louder. And this collective that I'm trusting will come to me so I can hold space so that the creation can happen.
Laughing only because another one of the sayings is which literally exactly what you
Yeah,
did was
it's just
come to mama, come to mama. And
let me hold space.
mama to me in this moment is there is a place for you to plug in,
Yeah,
and it's the come to mama, come to grandmother, come to papa, come to
come
the
to a safe,
children who are
come to a safe
all
place.
waking up in this moment to create communities of safety
Mm-hmm.
where you can shine your freak flag. What you've been taught was a freak flag, but is truly exactly what the world needs in this moment. And when we bring all of them together, and that's what I believe is the emergence of this new way.
Beautiful. I agree. I agree. It's creating an element of safety, which ultimately, what we know is safety is in your own heart and give them the permission to reside there, but in this external world. Because we don't need to do this alone anymore. Mm-mm,
We're done. Like you said, not anymore. Nope.
not anymore. Mm-mm. Yeah, beautiful. So I was going to ask another question as to what's next, but it feels like we've kind of fished through that. But are there any other specifics for Kara that's next?
Yes, and I'm gonna just wrap it up quickly. I have a meeting with one of my partners in
Okay.
Guatemala in negative 2 minutes. So I would love to say what's next for me, and everyone is invited. Is I've launched what's called the Colibri. Colibri is Spanish for hummingbird experiment, Colibri. And what the Colibri experiment is doing is literally bringing science and measurement to testing out this new ideology called elevationism, which there's a lot of information, but it's essentially every if anything resonated around this conversation, we are running an experiment and creating a community to practice slash live elevationism in whatever way makes sense. And what's happening already is people are being called to it because they recognize their inner voice saying yes. And what's happening is these beautiful people are beautiful, brilliant people in all of these different areas who have unique gifts and talents are coming together, and collaborations, I talk about it within elevation ecosystems. How do we create elevation ecosystems where we have a collective vision, where the environment brings forth gifts and talents and purpose, where we have uh, evolved communication, evolved community. I wonder if that was a Freudian slip. Pay attention.
Mhm.
And D is deep trust in ourselves and our fellow members. So if any of this resonates and you're wondering, um, okay, well, this all sounds fine and dandy. And like, what community do I participate in? You're invited. It's all free. We're, taking steps on that. And then, I run my organizations as part of the experiment. So we have Threads Worldwide, who is connecting women artisans and women in social enterprises in the US who have been marginalized and taught that they don't matter and there's not a path for them to feel worthy and make money. We
Right.
connect with women like that who create products with our whole community in the US who have the opportunity to buy products that are in alignment. We call them our glimmer products. So, and then Backpack Dreams, which is a fundraising organization for youth to understand that they play a critical role in the world. So they get to fundraise utilizing all of these products that are creating exponential impact.
Yeah.
And another business is called Soul Journeys, where we take women, we say wise women or wing women, mothers and daughters. We're now going to do couples. That's, to Guatemala and now new places around the world to really be able to get out of their current environment and experience an
Yeah.
elevation ecosystem in a place where they can feel the peace to actually be able to experience it. So that's what's happening right now in my orbit.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'll put the links to everything Kara's mentioned in the show notes, so people have access to that information if they choose to join or explore or investigate further. So that'll be accessible and available to them. But I want to say thank you, Kara, for your vulnerabilities, for your shares, for your insights, and the courage you've truly stepped into to move forward to be of greater service. So thank you.
It has been my privilege, and I have been scribbling down notes from you, so I'm so grateful. And for all of you listeners, you're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
And just get curious if you're open to it. So what a pleasure and what a gift to be here.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.